I am Jane Stirling, the youngest child of John Stirling at Kippenross House in Perthshire. I was Chopin's pupil in Paris in the 1840s. I still feel deeply blessed whenever I recall the fond memories of him. His heartfelt affirmation that I will play very well one day in the future still warms my heart. My sister Catherine Erskine and I invited my dear teacher to come to Britain to perform a series of concerts in spring. He accepted our request. He firstly came to London in April and gave concerts to many distinguished guests, including Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. To further alleviate his financial difficulties, my sister and I invited him to Scotland for more concert series. Finally, in August, he accepted my invitation to visit Scotland. He got onto an express train from London Euston, and 12 hours later, he arrived in Edinburgh. Scotland is my homeland. Still, it feels fresh to see through the familiar scenery through my teacher's perspective. The static city seems to burst into life whenever the flow of Chopin's music pulsates the stagnant air. When my teacher stepped out of the train, he was shocked by the huge contrasts in Edinburgh City. The ruggedness of the old town was at stark contrast with the splendours of the new town. Edinburgh just witnessed a remarkable experiment in art. The vibrant cultural life was at its height in the Scottish capital. The construction of the Scots Monument had just been finished 3 years before Chopin's arrival in Edinburgh. The Royal Institution had also just been completed in 1835. Chopin found Edinburgh musically intriguing when he occasionally overheard his music being played by anonymous musicians. We then all stayed with my family in Calder House near Edinburgh. The luxurious house belongs to my sister's brother-in-law, Lord Turfinchen. Turfinchen cordially invited Chopin and us to stay there. The journey from Edinburgh to Calder was 12 miles. We were on an English-style carriage. My sister and I tried to keep Chopin socially occupied. Also, I wanted to make sure that playing the piano is no problem for him. My Pleyel grand piano was made available for him in my drawing room, and another Broadwood piano was accessible in his room. We also wanted to make sure that Chopin visited many houses connected to the Stirling family in the Scottish countryside. Among the houses he visited, the Johnston Castle, which belonged to my eldest sister Anne and her husband Ludovic Houston, was a highlight. Chopin stayed there twice, both before and after his Glasgow concert in September. He received proper attention from the high-class society at the castle. The social life there was a new experience for him. My Pleyel grand piano, which Chopin used to entertain the owners and guests at Johnston's, complemented his musical activities. Despite the difficulty at composing in Scotland, he must have been fully aware of the magic of his music. In 1844, my beloved teacher dedicated 2 of his nocturnes, Opus 55, to me. The nocturnes are in F minor and E flat major respectively, and are subtitled to Mademoiselle J.W. Stirling. These 2 nocturnes are incredibly beautiful. The first one is full of dramatic twists, driving a simplistic statement to a climatic and ethereal end. The second one is emotionally deep, interweaving several textures of voices together. Sometimes the major melodies are like sunshine coming in. How brilliant and warm that light of music feels. My teacher seems to like the bliss of having the window view of the Stirling Castle. He writes correspondence constantly during this time, probably most to his Polish friend, Wojciech. His spirit was spiralling down nonetheless. The chilling weather somehow was not good for him. Chopin performed at the prestigious Hopton Rooms on the 4th of October. It was the only full-length solo recital he gave in his life. The concert began at 8:30 p.m. He played his own music, including the Impromptu, some Études, Preludes and Berceuse. My teacher moaned about feeling underappreciated in Britain. From his perspective, the musical taste in England and Scotland was still lagging behind Paris. This partially explains why tickets didn't sell well for his Edinburgh concert. I purchased 100 tickets and gave them to people from my social circle. I wanted to see the concert hall filled up with audience. The concert was highly reviewed, earning my teacher great admiration from his audience, as well as from the critic of the Edinburgh Advertiser and the Scotsman newspaper. Chopin could hardly compose anything during his stay in Scotland. He was barely in the right mental and physical state to do anything before lunchtime at 2 p.m. every day. At the dinner table, he was unable to converse with my relatives. His manservant then accompanied him to his bedroom, where he was left to gasp at nightmares. On the 31st of October, he left Scotland for London. I was hoping for him to visit again next year, but it never happened. His health deteriorated day by day. He struggled, and he died in Paris 11 months after he left Scotland on the 17th of October. I grieved. The last small contribution I could do was to buy the Play piano hired by him in Paris, and I sent it back to his family in Warsaw. I paid for his stately funeral and covered his sister Ludwika's travel expenses from Warsaw. But I couldn't attend his public burial. I was mourning solitarily. I bought all artifacts related to my dear teacher, including his furniture, manuscripts, and letters. I wrote to his sister in many attempts. Together with his sister, we arranged for the posthumous publications of his unpublished works. Chopin told me I was the only person who knows his real date of birth. In Cimetière de Père-Lachaise, where my beloved teacher was buried, I buried a box which contains a piece of letter having his birthday written on it. I know Chopin's heart is always with his homeland Poland, seeing the ill-fated destiny of the country. His music is always reminiscent of the Polish air. I organised the transportation of his physical heart from Paris to Poland. His heart is buried in Poland. The first anniversary of his death, I visited the cemetery again. His sister gave me some Polish soil. I scattered it all over his tomb.